So that was a quick look into the vellum grain basics. Now let's delete all of this. And we'll get our ship back. And let's start working on the grain source that we'll use for the sand that will be on top of the ship. So we'll make a new geo. And let's call this grain source. We'll go in and we'll make a grid. So basically what we want to do is we want to create a kind of blanket of grains that will rest on top of the ground. So we need to make the grid bigger than the ship. We can go to our top view, 2 on the numpad, and we'll make the grid bigger. So 20, but let's have some spare room, so we'll do 25. So this will completely cover the ship, as you can see. And so once we fill this grid up with grains, we have a huge surface area that we need to fill up. So it's gonna be hard on our computers. So when we take a look at this, there's a lot of areas that the ship isn't really coming close to. And we can delete those parts of the grid. But first, let's up the resolution. See, we have all these little squares now. And we'll remesh this. So we get some more natural shapes. And this will, because we're gonna delete parts of this. So we'll go to our selection tool. As you can see, we can select parts of the grid and we can delete those. So press numpad 2 twice to get in the bottom view. Make sure you're on the select tool. Make sure you've selected the primitive selector. And we can start deleting parts of our plane. With Control, you can deselect, and with Shift, you can add a selection. Now we want to delete the parts that the ship won't come close to, but also make sure that it's kind of natural looking. So we'll make some kind of natural shapes in here. Don't do like these big blocks. Okay, so something like this. And when we now press delete, we will get a blast node. As you can see, I forgot a little piece right here and right here. And we can easily add those by clicking the select tool here and shift, reselecting those areas. You could also deselect some more areas and press enter. Okay, so let's go back to our perspective viewport and let's poly extrude this because we want to have some volume. So poly extrude, and let's give it some thickness like this. And now we can poly reduce this. Whoops. Why is it not finding the poly reduce? Oh, it's one word. Okay. So we don't need all the information inside here, but we do want to have some information on the edges, which we can subdivide later. I see I've forgotten to check the output back on the poly extrude. Like this. We can have less information. Maybe 0.6. And then we'll subdivide this. And we're kind of looking for these natural organic edges. Let's see if we can get something nicer. So this looks pretty good. This could be a natural looking blanket of grains. Okay, let's organize this a little bit and make a null. And we'll call this our grain source geo out. Okay, let's make it a red color. Okay, so now let's turn this into our vellum grains. Now we can use the shelf tool again and select this as a source, but we can also just make it ourselves. So what we need is a vellum configure grain. And when we check the create points from volume, we will have our grains. So that's looking pretty cool. And as I said in the basics, we can check the jitter skill, and this will give us a more organic look, like this. So before we continue to our simulation, our DOP network, we need to finish this. So we need our vellum constraints, and we need two outs. Null. Let's copy this. We have to hook this up. And we'll call this our out geo. And this will be our out constraints. Okay. So now let's take a look at our DOP network.